Welcome to the We Hack Purple podcast, where each week we interview a different guest who has a different type of job within the industry of information security. I am your host, Tanya Janca, and this week we will be talking to Sasha Rosenbaum, who is a people manager at Red Hat. This week's episode is sponsored by UBIQ Security. They do API encryption as a service, and it's pretty sweet. But I bet you're thinking, we don't want to hear about all of that, Tanya. What we want to do is meet Sasha. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest. Hi, Sasha.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me over. I am super excited to be here today.
Thank you. I'm really happy too. Definitely, this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've been trying to schedule this for a few months now, so I'm excited it's finally happening.
Me too. And you somewhat recently changed jobs, and I'm super excited to talk about your new job because how about you tell us your title and just a little bit about what your job is?
Sure. So yes, this is interesting because when we scheduled this, I think I didn't intend to even change jobs, and now it did. So things happen sometimes quickly. I am now a team lead I would define it as a technical sales team at Red Hat. So we are there to help customers basically adopt OpenShift and manage OpenShift on cloud providers, public cloud providers, and be successful with it. You can ask me more questions.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, sure.
For our audience, super briefly, could you explain what OpenShift is? Because maybe some of them don't know.
Yeah, so this is a great question because I guess I would say the OpenShift is a enterprise version of Kubernetes. That's my best way to sort of put it. And I don't know if this is official marketing tagline. I've been there 3 weeks, so this is my take on it more than I know what the official party line is. But I will say that it's a Red Hat implementation of OpenShift and more, right? So it takes care of security, it takes care of some of the CI/CD pipelines and stuff like that. Basically provides you more services on top of Kubernetes, and it's also kind of cross-cloud, so you can deploy it in Azure, you can deploy it in AWS, you can deploy it on-prem. So it is a very useful way for you to be able to deploy the apps with the same architecture across different environments.
Okay, that's awesome. And that's a really great way to very clearly word it. So thank you. Everyone already learned stuff, and we're 2 minutes in.
Nice.
So can you describe what your job is? Because we haven't had anyone on yet that does technical sales, and we haven't had anyone on yet that's a people manager. So you kind of have two aspects to talk about if you're open to that.
Sure. So let me try to pick up technical sales first. So I want to talk a little bit about my background. So I come from, I consider myself a developer first, and this is where I still spent most of my years in development compared to anything else. But I've also had a number of different jobs, right? I was an IT admin at some point, and I did DevOps stuff when, we started calling it Devops. I was a product manager relatively briefly, but and I did dev relish type things. So kind of been around the block and held a bunch of different jobs in this industry. And I did technical sales for Microsoft for a number of years, which was fun. I know you worked for Microsoft too. I really like the company, so I had a lot of fun there. Yes. So basically, I guess I just came over to Red Hat to sort of come back to the technical sales bit. I think technical sales sales has a bad name a lot of times, right? When people hear sales, they're like, oh my God, used car salesman kind of picture in their head and stuff like that. I think technical sales is that happy place where what we do is help people use technology, right? Because a lot of people technology is complicated. There's a lot of stuff, coming out every month, and a lot of it is confusing. A lot of it is new, right? And what essentially you want is to kind of have an expert come in and explain and help. Um, and this is where technical sales shines, right? It's not about me coming and shoving something down someone's throat and like
Mm-hmm.
making them pay me money, but it's more about like, can I help you solve your problems with my company's solutions and help you be successful?
Yes, yes. As a person that it now runs her own startup, I have to buy different products. And when I meet with a salesperson, I'm like, listen, these are my requirements. Can you meet them? And you're a big company, so you can't lie through your teeth. Some small companies make up some fiction, but mostly, like, the salesperson will be really honest with you and say, like, yeah, it does this and this, but it doesn't do that. But you can like integrate this thing over here, and then it will do these things, etc. Right? And I find they'll often like help you decide what works for you and will actually solve your problem, rather than
Yeah.
saying you have to buy my product, sign here, that's it.
And so my kind of way to express this is like you can sell lies once, but only once, right? Like people are not going to come back if what you're selling isn't real. So like you have to meet your customer where they are, and you have to be honest. Like if this is going to work for you, great. If it's not going to work for you, then not. And so a lot of times when we're talking about complex implementations, like it will work for you, but we need to figure out some technical difficulties to make it work for you. And that's another thing that, again, technical sales can do for you. It is help you be successful, right? So it provides that. So we often talk about DevRel in that similar sense, right? Providing a bridge between the product team and sort of the end user.
Can you
Only
explain what
here,
DevRel is?
oh, absolutely. So, I think again, technical sales has a lot of kind of DevRelish influence in it, especially kind of the team I'm building right now. Um, so developer relations, and again, like everything in tech, it has multiple names, and a lot of people
Yeah.
call it different things. But developer relations is essentially kind of a way to do. I don't want to say technical marketing, but it's sort of like,
Yeah.
if you had to think about it, this is your way to provide a message one too many, right? It's like
Yeah.
I am going into the world and I'm explaining to people what my product does and why it matters, why it's important. And also in as part of this, it's always about telling stories, right? It's always about like, hey, we were successful let's say at Microsoft by doing XYZ, right? Or we were successful at GitHub, or we failed in something and we want you to learn from our mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see a lot of folks from like Netflix coming up on stage and kind of present what their solution was and stuff like that. So, and I know you spent time in DevRel, right? So you can also help us define that.
Yeah, it's definitely marketing from the bottom up, if that makes sense. So the people who are hands on keyboard, helping them solve their problems, helping them see potential solutions, or like just super cool stuff that they could do that maybe they hadn't thought of. But yeah, and it's also a lot about creating content that then can help people know how to use your product so that they're happy, right?
Yeah.
Like if they don't have to call support and instead can find an awesome blog that walks them through and solves their problem, they're happier because, no offense to people that do support, everyone would rather feel enabled to solve the problem themselves rather than ask for help, right? If they can like follow a blog or watch a video and have Sasha demo something to them, then they're like, oh, I got this. I'm awesome.
Yep. And documentation is such a big part of it, right? Like people can't just guess what your product does, right? So it's always about writing good docs, providing good demos, explanations, and stuff like that, right? And again, that's so tech is always siloed, right? So it's always like dev doesn't like ops, doesn't like security, doesn't like sales, doesn't like marketing, whatever. And everybody's like, oh, don't call me that. I'm not marketing. I'm not sales. I'm not this. I'm not that. Like I am like, we are working towards a common goal, right?
Yeah.
Like in the end of it all, we are trying to help businesses solve problems. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And whether you call me DevRel or sales or engineering or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me as long as I know that I am actually helpful to people to actually deliver their business value to their customers.
Oh my gosh, Sasha, if every single person had that attitude, the world would be a happier place.
I do think so.
Okay, now people management. What is that like?
So it's new, so we're gonna find out. But I think, in my personal opinion, um, people management is about enabling people more than anything else, right? So, on one hand, we have this micromanagement approach, and like let's tell everybody what to do and how to do it and watch them do it, because if we don't watch them for 5 minutes, they're gonna not work or whatever. I think I'm on a totally different side of the spectrum, right? And I'm like, I trust people to do the right thing, and I believe that they always want to do the right thing, barring like special circumstances. Sometimes like things really go wrong, but this is about enabling people to do their best work, right? And people kind of shine in different ways, so you have to kind of find, like, what does the person struggle with, and where does the person shine, and help them maximize their strength. There's this there's this book called The Strength Finder, and so like it goes a lot about like discovering people's strength, and I'm not so concerned about like particular strengths because it kind of map you out and give you an assessment and whatever, but I'm more concerned about the message itself, which is they kind of found through their research that when people focus on their kind of enhancing their strengths, they do a lot better than when they try to like fix their weaknesses, right? So let's say someone's not good at planning, but really good at presenting to people, right? So that person can spend a lot of time trying to be better at planning and kind of still suck at it. Or they can pair up with someone who's really good at planning and spend most of their time talking to people, which they will do really well, right?
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I've done a lot of people management in my zillions of years in tech. And right now at my current company, we do this thing called a 360 review every month. And so,
wow.
Yeah, it turned out that, so one of the co-op students said he's like, I really, really, really want to be the best salesperson you've ever met. And whenever I get feedback, it's always, you're awesome. I don't want to hear I'm awesome. I want to hear if this one thing could have been better or this or that. And he's like, I want real, genuine feedback. And so we started having these super deep conversations. And I've had 360 reviews before that usually I spring on my manager against their will, where I'm like, listen, this is really working for me, but I need more positive reinforcement. Or like, if you don't answer my emails for a week, FYI, I'm going to make the decision for you. And I'll tell them, like, this is how I want to be managed. And so we have these, and it's not like a formal review. It's more just like, I want to know what I'm doing that works for you. I want to know what I'm doing that doesn't work for you. Like, do you have the tools that you need to get your job done? Is there stuff that's frustrating you that's not working for you? And so sometimes I'm like, okay, you no longer have to work on that product or whatever. Someone else is going to work on it. And I like swap things around a bit. But quite often the things that people really like or don't like really surprise me. Like one of them told me when we went over our company values that was so meaningful for her. And that it was really important to her that we follow these values, and going over that really mattered. Well, another one was like, I get so lonely working from home. Could we do like he was living around 35 kilometers from me, and he's like, could we do like a social distance, but in the same place? Because I haven't been around any, I live alone and it's killing me. So I was like, yeah, let's figure out like a safe way for us to do this, right? And like adjusting for each person. Are you having,
So this is a very interesting topic, and it's more like, I want to learn from people what they do right now than I have like a lot of advice. But like, we're gonna onboard a whole new team to the company while being completely remote and not being able to meet anyone face to face. And this is like a new thing, right? And it's so many, like, I am pretty good about finding the right people to talk to and scheduling calls and like being proactive about this and stuff like that. I'm also super burnt out of video calls. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But like, it is so much easier when you kind of can walk up to people and just like talk to them when you need something, and like ask them questions, take them out to coffee, take them out to lunch, just like, come together as a team. Ironically, like, I joined GitHub about a year ago, like my previous job, right? And except for the people who came with me from Microsoft, like I've never met my team in person. So
Oh, wow.
I left the company before ever meeting my team in person. And that sucks like so
Yeah,
bad. You know what I mean?
it does.
Um,
It so does. And like you don't get to have that kind of like intimate connection where, especially if you're the leader of the team, like you need to instill such confidence that they're willing to follow you, right? Like unless you want to be one of those people that yells at everyone all the time, which I think we both agree like that's not our style, because I probably wouldn't have invited you on the podcast. Um, but like then you have to like gain their trust and earn it and earn that they will follow you, right? And like it's harder to do that not in person. Or I
and just generally, right? So like psychological safety is super important. And as much as like everybody is always making fun of like, oh, let's do a bonding exercise and just like climb trees together, you know what I mean? Like these like stupid game things, but they
yeah.
work, right? Like as part of this, you're kind of having a shared experience and you're learning about each other, and it's a laid back environment. It's not about like, oh my God, we're going to deliver things. And it helps build that trust that is tremendously important. So I'm going to give a talk next week that is about growth mindset, which I've been meaning to give for a long time. I haven't finished my slides yet, so wish me luck.
Are
But
we going to share a
um,
link to it?
to the talk, yeah, of course. But like I really so the more conversations I'm having with people, and you know that at Microsoft, growth mindset is kind of a big thing, and everybody talks about it all the time. Like the more I'm having conversations with people outside, the more I'm like, people need to hear this. Like people need to hear this talk. People need to read the book by
Yeah.
Carol Dweck about mindset, because this is just like I am finding that so many people are afraid to ask questions. So many people are like kind of constantly afraid to come off as not knowledgeable, or like constantly feel the need to prove themselves. And it's especially so like, right, if you're an underrepresented person in tech, like it's especially so, right? People feel the need to extra prove themselves all the time. And I feel like in my career, I just basically take the opposite approach. I ask all the questions all the time, right? And it works for me. And I'm not saying like everybody should be like me, right? But I, it's okay to be vulnerable and to ask questions, because people want to help you and people want to provide you information. And usually people actually open up and kind of think of you as a smart person, not a dumb person. People think of you as a dumb person if you try to impress them and you fail, right? Not when you ask them a question. Again, that's been my experience of like,
I feel that being vulnerable and admitting you don't know something is a thing that very confident people do. And that people that have a severe lack of confidence will pretend they know lots of things that they don't, which is quite dangerous, especially with multi-million dollar products and projects and or many other things, right? And
right?
I'm a firm believer in asking questions and also taking in the input of lots of other people. But so I'm putting the book underneath you. So it's Mindset, the new psychology of success. Yes?
Yep. And it talks about growth mindset, but the book name is Mindset. And the book is amazing. I'm rereading it just so I can give a talk. And like, she's done all the research for me. Like, I literally, like, I don't have to pull extra quotes because they're all in there already. Like, you know what I mean? That already has all the stories and all the things. Just, I think it's a life changing book. And I always say, like, I wish someone gave it to me when I was 13 rather than 30, because, like, that would save me so much grief. on my life journey, you know.
I know that feeling. Will you briefly explain what a growth mindset is?
Yeah. So when we talk about ability, there's kind of two ways to define ability. Ability is either something you have, so it's inborn, everything I sort of came with me inborn. So, and it could relate to anything. Can relate to intelligence, could relate to sports ability, could relate to how artistic you are, right? Even to personality, right? So like whether or not you can change your character is also part of this. And then when you say fixed mindset, that is when I believe everything was inborn. And when you say growth mindset is I can continue developing my entire life, right? And I think in different parts of my life, I kind of had this realization of like, I can continue changing things about myself. And that was like always very freeing. But in particular, like when I read the book, like it just all clicked. I'm like, oh my God, this is why we struggle so much, because we constantly think that we need to prove ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you free yourself from that, and I can't say I'm completely free, right? I still, like, I'm competitive. I want to be the best at things and stuff. But like when I free myself from that, like I have to prove it. Like I have to know things already, like, you know what I mean? And I can be like, I'm improving. I'm a work in progress. This is, this is constantly changing. Then it works a lot better. And one thing that I mentioned, right, that everybody at Microsoft talks about growth mindset, because I think Satya Nadella is very insistent on the fact that like growth mindset is a thing. And I think this is part of what like the new Microsoft is, right? Kind of where we came from, like Microsoft came from like sort of being an old school company into being a very, the new tech giant, right? That's competing with all the like new shiny tech giants. Because where we are in tech, we constantly have to learn things, and we can no longer be like, oh yeah, like we know everything about SQL. Like I don't know, SQL released 5 new updates today. Like I don't know everything about SQL. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Considering like, and like if the more you go, like the broader your perspective gets, the less you know, right? Because like your domain gets bigger. Like anyway.
No, it's so true. Thank you. Because I love that. I love that idea. And I totally subscribe to the idea that I can change myself. I can learn new things. Whenever someone says you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I'm like, well, maybe you just don't want to own that dog, right? Like maybe we have a great comment in the chat. So UBIQ Security says, great advice, Sasha. We never stop asking questions, and it's vital for us to always be curious and to never stop learning. And I completely agree. And I want to take this opportunity to thank UBIQ Security for being our sponsor of tonight's podcast. They planned this way in advance because they wanted some divine ops. They wanted to support Sasha's episode. So Sasha's handle online is divine ops, and it's such a good handle. And I wanted to tell everyone that UBIQ is actually, they just launched a free tier for developers that allows them to, so basically they do like encryption as a service, and it's really cool. So you call them in your application, they just do all that messiness for you. And so their free tier is up to 100,000 API calls or like encryptions per month. And so if you want to check that out, you should go to ubiqsecurity.com, and the trial is free for everyone. And I really like giving away free stuff on this podcast. And so definitely go check out ubiqsecurity.com and then go to newsletter.wehackpurple.com, because We Hack Purple Academy has made a whole bunch. We've made 2 free mini courses that we're giving away. And one is on instant response for application security incidents. And the other one is how to scale your security team and your security program without extra security dollars. And so like, how can you scale things better and get more of what you want, which is usually, in our case, secure software. And so go on down to newsletter.wehackpurple.com, which, I'm putting the URL of UBIQ Security, and then I'm going to put the newsletter one up after. But I have more questions for you, Sasha.
Sure. While you're doing this, while you're putting the links up there, I just want to mention that I just read your book, and like it's excellent. I just want to do a plug for you. Everybody should buy Tanya's book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. So this is how my life goes. Like I have like 12 books in on the list that I want to read, and I bought the book, and I was like, I probably won't read it for a while, and then I started reading it, and it was so great, and I just couldn't stop, and I just finished the whole thing. So you should definitely read it. Is my point.
Thank you. Thank you so much for putting quotes online. It is so funny to see people's responses to, like, you'll put in like one line from the book, and then people will make these huge assumptions, and they're like, well, what if this? I'm like, it doesn't say that. She didn't type that. Like
That's Twitter for you, right? But I also like how positive you are. You're always like really positive in your responses, like, and because sometimes I'm like, I just want to like be kind of mean, but I try
I know.
not to be.
I feel like if you say on Twitter, I like cats, 100 people will be like, Tanya hates dogs and she murders them sometimes. And it's like, whoa, I still pet all the nice dogs. Don't worry. Snakes are also okay with me, and lizards. But before you know it, you are the person that hates dogs. And you're like, all I said was cats are cute. I'm sorry.
I know.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Speaking of like my Twitter feed, so I am Divine Ops on Twitter, and like my Twitter feed is full of cats. So if you like cats, like you can follow me.
She has serious cat gif game and also like super cute memes as well. And sometimes she says, just send me the cute animals, and then you can follow that thread and just get nice cute animals for like a few hours. It's pretty good.
You know, and I do like all animals, especially anything fluffy. So like, you know, I definitely like dogs as well, but like cats are my, so I think I'm sublimating. I don't actually have a cat, and that's why like I find lots of cat videos and just watch them so they can make me happy.
Yes.
So, you know,
I don't have a pet either, and so yeah, I really like to live vicariously through someone else's pets. Like so I have like this 3-hour block with a client every week where we just like build pipelines and do super cool stuff. And he just got a puppy, and I have to say I've been living vicariously through my client with his cute, and his puppy's so fluffy, and it's so adorable. Ooh, UBIQ Security's like, rabbits are also cute? Yes, rabbits rule. Basically, if you can pet them and cuddle them, like, I'm in. But back to you, Sasha. Let's get serious.
Sure, let's get serious.
What is a day in the life like of someone that does people management, but also someone that does, you know, like not customer success, but like technical sales, like helping solve
and
problems.
You can call it customer success too. Like, you know what I mean? It's like anything has multiple names, and people feel strongly about what the names should be. And I also feel strongly about what the names should be, but sometimes it's useful to use multiple ones to gain context. But yeah, so judging from my past 3 weeks experience, it's mostly meetings. I'm just gonna be honest with you, right? Like there's lots of meetings. But like I think like normally you will be, and again, if you are doing individual contributor, customer success, technical sales, or DevRel, you're going to be interfacing with customers a lot, right? You're going to be on a lot of like doing a lot of presentations, doing a lot of demos, doing a lot of walkthroughs and things like that. Sometimes, again, it kind of depends on how far you go. Sometimes you actually go and help someone implement something. You know, put your hands on keyboards. I love hands on keyboards. That's what gets things moving. And sometimes you can just tell stories, which is also awesome. And then, like, again, as a people manager, and this is why, like, I had a choice of being a people manager, you know, like 10 years ago. And I was like, yeah, no, I like writing code better than spreadsheets. But I am going to find out how much I like spreadsheets, right? But I think eventually in your career, you kind of figure out that the only way to scale is through sort of building a team. Right. And I think you can definitely speak to that. But like, I just figured out like there's only so many hours in a day that I can do stuff. And then like, if I want to do more, I have to teach other people how to do stuff. And then like, we can scale together.
I personally feel like when you're managing people or leading a team, that what you're doing is investing in a person. And so like, for instance, I have some students right now, and one of them I'm teaching how to do all these fancy social media things and how to just like do various things to help. But then before I know it, he's going to be like, get out of my way, Tanya. I got this. Do you know what I mean? And so then that's just off my plate. And I just like trust this person, right?
I think the best thing is like when you delegate something to someone and they surprise you, like in a good way. You know, and you're like, oh, I would have never done it this way, but it's amazing. Like that's like the best thing in the world. You're like, oh my God, this just happened and this is fantastic and thank you so much. And like, you know, and I think the best managers I've ever had were always like the people who remembered more good stuff that I did than I did. Like, does that make sense? Like, they come to you and then like 6 months later, they're like writing your review and Sasha did X. And I'm like, really? I completely forgot I did X, but thank you. This is awesome. Like, you know, because it's like our memory just like works only on what's next and kind of not what happened last week. I'm like, what did I do last week? I don't know. You know, I take notes.
I love it when a manager says to me, I trust you. Like, I remember I got a job and the manager we had worked together previously and he brought me in and I found this huge design flaw in a project that they were about to start, like they were halfway through. And, you know, I wrote the other devs and was like, oh, no. And they're like, go away. And I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And like, here's why. And they're like, go away. And so my boss had been on vacation. He comes back and he holds a meeting with us. And he's like, okay, so tell everyone your concern. And I did. And there was like a big problem, trust me. And then the guys were like, well, we can't just change this partway through the project and blah, blah, blah. And my boss has said, did you effing hear her? Were you listening? Because she's the boss here, yo. I hired her because she knows what she's doing. And she says it's not going to work. You want to try to prove her wrong? Go for it. But she has way more programming experience than you. She's been doing this longer. And, like, he didn't say it, but it's like your previous job was personal trainer. Like, he didn't have any previous programming experience before this job. And, like, that's how we ended up in this problem with this giant technical issue is that, like, he didn't have any, like, background training or whatever and was just throwing stuff together. And we're about to have, like, a huge disaster.
Full Stack Overflow developer.
Oh, my gosh, yes. But, like, when you are able to say that you trust your employees, like, that's this beautiful thing where you're like, I trust you to make this decision. So Sasha, you are about to start learning about delegation and delegate the decisions too, not just the work.
And so it's actually like, there's a downside to that. And that's like, you know, when you don't trust the people. And that happens too. And that, like, I don't have a good solution for it. So like, my goal right now is that like, I just want to hire only people I can trust. And I am in a position where I get to hire people, like, you know what I mean? But of course you can't know everything. Like, you definitely can't know everything from interviews. Interviews are kind of a sucky way to try to learn about a person. But it's yes, I like, in the leading projects type of thing, like, you know that there's some people that you can just be like, figure this out and like this magically happens. And then you know that there's some people that are like, I need to spend so much time explaining this to you that I probably could do it better myself and faster without explaining. And then like the question is like, am I explaining this like am I holding someone's hand because they're new, because they're a student, because they're like, you know, new to the job or something, or am I like continuously holding someone's hand because they just don't want to make an effort to actually do the thing? And like, I just hope I don't have to deal with stuff like that. That's my honest hope.
I used to work for the federal government where there was the strongest union in Canada, and I had some people where you just didn't even want them to do their job because they were so dangerous. But yeah, I've learned how to handle difficult employees. But this is not a show about me. This is a show about you. And
okay. But I will ask you for notes after this.
Okay.
I think, just in case.
Definitely. We can have an online virtual coffee.
All right. That sounds good.
So
I mean, in-person coffee sounds better, but
I know.
Okay.
I know. I am up for that as soon as we both have vaccines.
I know. It's like, I honestly can't wait for, like, first couple of months, I was actually like, oh, no travel. This is kind of good.
Yes.
And then, yeah, the other thing I will say about my job, is it usually involves quite a significant amount of travel. And again, there's different, like, I have done technical sales where it was local, but usually it does involve quite a bit of travel. So that's another thing. Like, if you want to travel, this is a good job for you. If you don't, probably not. So.
Yes, I learned just how much travel a human being is physically capable of in 2019. And in 2020, I set this personal goal that I wanted to travel significantly less. But I didn't know I would overdo it to this level. Like, when I set the goal to travel less, I didn't realize I'd travel 0. But that's okay. I feel like staying home has been a good thing for me.
So you want to hear an ironic story? Like when I came over to GitHub, that was the first time that I took like a DevRel job. Like explicitly, your job is to speak at conferences, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I was supposed to go to all these bunch of conferences, and none of it happened because coronavirus happened, and that was kind of upsetting.
Yes.
I would say.
One of my friends actually just resigned from a DevRel job, and she said, like I took it because I love speaking at conferences and I love traveling, but because that's off the books, or like that's off the table right now, she's like, they just have me writing, and she's like, I don't mean to sound like a snob, but I don't want to write all day. I don't like it. I'm an extrovert. It's killing me. And so, yeah, so she left, and now she's like the VP of security somewhere. She's like, I want to see humans. I need humans.
Yeah.
And she's much happier.
I think like, and yes, and I don't mean to like dunk on virtual. Virtual has its benefits. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't do this podcast in real life, probably. Like, it would be extremely hard to figure this out schedule wise, right? But doing only virtual all the time does suck. Like, there's only so many things you can accomplish. Like, you know what I mean, with having a virtual audience. And we talk about psychological safety. Like, if I'm in a room with people, I can get to a discussion where people ask me real questions and tell me real feedback, and we're actually kind of getting somewhere. Whereas on a webinar, like, probably not going to happen,
Yeah, I agree that people are less forthcoming for sure virtually. I actually had a situation, I think in 2018 or 2019, where a person actually had recorded our phone call without telling me, and then had like edited it and played it for some people to try to make me sound really bad. And it got back to me very quickly. But since then, I've been like a little bit extra conscious of things that I say, because like never would I have thought that a person that phoned me like spontaneously would then record it and then attempt to make me look really bad. And like, voila. Being in cyber is interesting. None of this happened to me when I was a dev. None of this stuff happened when I was a dev. But I feel like there's that consideration constantly when you're having a virtual call, like maybe someone's recording this, as opposed to if you're physically like in a cafe with someone having coffee. I don't know, that would never occur to me that was happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's just like, we're humans. We're like, the multi-dimensional thing actually matters, because like there was some, I think, research, and I did like, I can't give you like a link or a reference, but there was some research where like when we talk to people like this, right, we actually like, we have to build out like what Tanya actually looks like it takes extra mental effort to do that, and so being on video calls is extra tiring because of all of this effort. So it's like we're all getting a like boot camp in virtual stuff, like, for the majority of 2020. And I think this is amazing that technology is good enough for us to enable us to do almost everything we normally do in a virtual world, right? But also it's really like for the pandemic to go away finally.
Yes, all of us are very much so looking forward to that. Yeah, my company was always planned to be remote, like where we all work in separate locations so that I could hire anyone in Canada that I wanted. But gosh, I didn't know it would be mandatory. But I have like a couple more questions because we have some more time. And I wanted to ask what types of personality traits that you think someone would need to be good at your job.
So obviously, one of the most prominent fears, like phobias in like the world, is public speaking, actually. So it's not snakes, it's not death is number 2, right? Public speaking is number 1. Public speaking is scary. So you need to be comfortable with the idea of public speaking, right? You need to be good at public speaking, but like you can get good over time. Like I said, growth mindset, you can get good at almost anything. But you have to be like open to an idea and think that you will enjoy this. There's a story in a book on psychology, actually, like behavioral whatever, CBT, REBT, it's called whatever.
Cognitive
But anyway,
behavioral therapy.
yeah, it's not, so REBT is rational emotive behavioral something. Anyway, the story was that like this psychologist guy, like he was extremely scared of talking to women, extremely scared, like he couldn't do it. And so at one point he gave himself like a, mandate, and he would talk to one woman like every day or something like that, and for 100 days. And he asked them all for a phone number, and his success rate was 0. He got 0 phone numbers, but in 100 days he was not afraid of talking to women anymore. Like that just wasn't a scary thing anymore. Which is, like I said, like you can get good at public speaking and it can become kind of second nature, and you can be completely comfortable doing it, but you have to be willing to get there. And again, before someone to hire you, you probably have to be halfway there at least. Right? I don't like the word extrovert. I personally think that everybody is an ambivert, right? So I have moods where I'm like, oh my God, give me 500 people, and moods where I'm like, yeah, please leave me alone, and I don't want to talk to humans. And I think pretty much everyone is like that. I don't think everyone is always in one mode. But like, yes, definitely not like, misanthropic type of like, I don't want to talk to humans stuff. Yeah. I personally, I believe that like an ability to get excited about what you're doing is helpful because it's contagious, right? Like it's far easier for me to get someone into like solutioning and deploying and doing stuff if I'm excited about it than if I'm like, oh, everything sucks, like technology, why computers were a mistake. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
People say that. Like there's some types in tech that are like, oh, like everything sucks all the time. Like I would not want someone like that to be in customer success.
No. They should be on the customer failure team.
Right. I also like supremely don't believe in like developers don't like to talk to humans stuff. Like, you know what I mean? We like to classify people, but really like anybody can be good in anything they want to be. Again, not everything, but like you can improve as long as you want to.
Yeah, I totally agree. Would you say that you've gotten so that you enjoy presenting?
So I've always enjoyed presenting. I think as a kid, like, whenever you had an option of like, can you present this thing on, in front of a class, like I would volunteer every single time, right? Which is actually a great strategy because then when you don't know anything, they don't call on you because they're sick of you being there. But anyway, like, so I kind of like really enjoyed it as a kid. And then I think all the way through college, I did none of that. And I kind of missed that. So like when I first had an opportunity, like, oh, there's tech conference and I can present something on stage and stuff. Like I started kind of doing it on my own time, which then sort of morphed into the relish type of things and salesy type of things.
That's awesome. When you started presenting at like meetups and conferences and other places, were you really, really nervous at first, or were you just comfortable right from the beginning?
I was definitely nervous, and it also like it takes a skill, right? Like some things are hard to do. Like I think demos, for instance, are extremely hard to do. Right? To do a good demo, it doesn't just take that your technology works. It also takes like how can you tell a story while also clicking buttons or like writing a script. And like people who are really good at this, they practice way more than I do. Like they practice for days, like until it like is completely flawless and stuff like that. It's a lot easier for me to give a talk, right? Like to just talk to a slide because like I can put one word on a slide and I can tell you the whole story around it, and But again, like I know people who practice talks for weeks, and I know people who like write the talk the day before and they're excellent. And it's kind of like people have different strategies in approaching things and different rates of like different ways to succeed at stuff. It definitely gets where like you less and less nervous the more you do it. I think it was Donovan maybe that told me that like at one point he got to a point where he walked up on stage at Build, which Build is like Build keynote so build regular talk is fine, right? But build keynote is like a really stressful situation.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I was not nervous anymore. I'm like, I don't think like this would take 20 years of me doing like,
Yeah.
build keynotes. Like there's a lot of pressure. So
He's pretty awesome, though. We're talking
mhm.
about Donovan Brown from Microsoft, who is a developer relations person who leads the Devops, the Extraordinary League of Devops. If you want to look him up, all the people in the league are pretty awesome. Like, they're pretty awesome. If you want to learn about DevOps, like Abel Wing and Steve Morowski, and I used to get to work with these awesome humans, so I'm pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool when you're like, oh my gosh, that person's so amazing, and like you're like fangirling over someone. You're like, yeah, they work with me. It's like,
So I will say I'm not the kind of person who like melt over celebrities and stuff, but I had a fangirl moment with Scott Hanselman years ago. Like the first time I went to Build, ironically, we're talking about Build. I went to Build for the first time and I ran into him in the hallway and I was like, "You Scott Hanselman," and like I just had a mini meltdown, you know what I mean? And the funny thing was like he's an amazing human because like he remembered me like 5 years later and he was like, we met in blah blah in San Francisco. I'm like, how? I don't know.
he's so nice, right?
Somehow. He's the nicest human being in the universe. I am constantly surprised at how nice he is, and I think some of the folks in DevRel like totally deserve their like sort of fame. I don't know, just because they're just the nicest humans on the planet. And this is a hard job to do because, like you said, like people come at you with all sorts of
Weirdness.
negative feedback that is unasked for and like unwarranted and stuff, and it's kind of hard to it's hard to filter it out, even if you know it's so my favorite thing is like you will never give a talk where everybody will be satisfied with the level, right? So whatever talk you give, like some people will be like, this is too basic, and some people are like, this is too advanced, right? And I was reading oh my God, the CEO of Intel, oh my God, Andy Grove, like his book is like, it came out in 83, right? And like, I was reading it and I came across a passage and he was talking about presenting and he was like, on every talk you will get like 50% of people saying it's the right level and then 25 saying it's too basic and 25 saying it's too advanced. I'm like, okay, this was true in 83.
It's so true.
And it was the CEO of Intel, like, presenting to people.
Yes, and if you give a workshop, there will be 25% of people that said it went too fast, and there will be 25% of people that said it went way too slow. But if half of them are like, yeah, that was good, then you're all right.
So I will say, so my former boss, Martin Woodward, who works at GitHub now, so he's an amazing human being too. And I've seen his ratings once and it got me like really stressed out because like he had a 100% like satisfaction rate on one of his talks. And like there was like 300 people in there. It's not like 100% for like 3 people. No, there was like a massive audience, and everybody was 100% satisfied. Like this is not human. Like you can't do that. What? I don't know. But apparently he's a superhuman and this exists.
That is awesome.
I know, right?
So I have like 1,000 other things I want to ask, but we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna try
Sure,
really.
we talked a lot about DevRel, so we can talk about other things.
What type of technical skills do you think that someone needs to be able to do a job like yours? Because if they have no technical skills, I don't think that they could be good at technical sales.
I don't think you can be. And this is not in a sense that like, again, you can learn anything. I keep repeating this because I truly believe that. And there's a lot of gatekeeping in tech. But I think so for me to like want to hire someone, like I want them to have like 5 years of technical experience. Now, I don't necessarily care what this experience is on, right? You wrote things in Python, or you were in InfoSec, or you did networking. Like I don't necessarily care which part of tech you were specialized in, but I want you to have lived the hard life, right? Because like there are scars that come from running things in production that you can't fake. Like there's empathy for things that is unfakeable, right? And then I want you to be open to learning new things, right? Because tech moves really fast, and actually, when you are in like customer success or sales, like it moves faster because you are selling people things that don't exist yet or like just came out yesterday. Like literally, like a day after something is announced, a bunch of people will call you and be like, how do I do this? And I'm like, okay, well, let me read the white paper, right? Or let me talk to engineering about this. Like, and go explain it to you. Like, so yes, it definitely like the learning never stops here.
I, I totally agree. I totally agree. We're, so like you were saying, there's some gatekeeping in InfoSec and in tech, like especially in InfoSec. What is gatekeeping? Just like, so I know that most of the audience probably understands that, but just so we could lay it out.
Yeah. So, and again, words have definitions that are sometimes blurry, but like sort of preventing someone from getting access to something just based on like criteria that doesn't necessarily matter, right? So it's an example would be you can't be a developer if you don't have a computer science degree. Now, I have a computer science degree, so I can tell you you don't need a computer science
Yeah.
degree to be in technology, to be a developer, to be an infosec, none of it, right? Now that doesn't mean that anybody who did a course for 3 months can be as successful as someone who's been in tech for 10 years. Like, I'm not saying that practice doesn't matter or anything like that,
Yeah.
right? But these are like sort of phony criteria that people use,
Yeah.
right? Like, did you pass this certification or something? Or
Yeah.
like, are you like, I mean, a lot of women get gatekeeping, especially when they're just entry level or when they're in school. Like, people tell them like, oh, it's not a girly profession. And like,
Mm-hmm.
this is funny because people are like, well, you don't have to listen. It's like, well, imagine that people told you every day that you don't belong here. Like every
Yep.
single day, they're like, oh, you should go do something else. And like, I mean, it's hard not to internalize. You know what I mean?
Years ago, I was walking into the so I was a CISO, and I was walking into the elevator with my team, and we just hired two students, and one was a 20-year-old woman, and one was like a 30-year-old man, and they're students, and this was both of their first infosec job, and so me and the rest of the team, but not the students, so all the adults, were getting into the elevator, and one of them was joking about something and about Star Wars, and I'd said I actually haven't seen Star Wars, and then he said we're gonna take your. He's like, are you kidding? I'm gonna take your nerd card. And then I was like, oh yeah, I run the OWASP chapter, and I do this, and I do that, and I do this, and I do that. I'm like, actually, I'll accept all your nerd cards, bitches. And then like put my hand out to accept their nerd cards, and we're all laughing. And I'm like, but seriously, don't ever say shit like that in front of Katie. And they're like, what? I'm like, I don't want her thinking she doesn't belong. She dyes her hair blue, shaves part of her head, and wears a leather jacket to work, and she's amazing. And I never want her to feel like she doesn't belong here because she's not a dude or because she doesn't like some stupid TV show. They're like, it's a movie. I'm like, I don't care. And
Yeah.
and they're like, no, but she doesn't have to listen. And I said, imagine if every day you came into work and everyone on the team but you wore pink. And every Thursday, we got our nails done together. And every whatever day, we did yoga together. And we did all this stuff. And all of our jokes were about that. And we decorated because they had their office decorated with like Star Wars, which is totally fine. And like, and imagine if everywhere you looked, that's all there was. I'm like, for 23 years, because I'd worked in tech that long. And they were like, oh, I'm like, imagine being told literally, constantly, subliminally, to your face, directly, over and over and over again. Why do you think women leave tech? And all their jaws were just on the floor. And I'm like, never speak that way to Katie. I'm bulletproof. But I don't want the next generation to have to be bulletproof to work in tech. And they're just like, we're sorry. I'm like, I'm sorry. I made this very serious, but seriously, don't do it.
So this is 100%, like I agree with every single word. And like I think the only way like I survived the first like, I don't know, 10 years including college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was like my mantra was I'm not like the other girls, right? Whenever people would tell me like XYZ, I would be like I'm not like the other girls. And it took me like getting in my 30s to realize like I am exactly like other girls. We're just told bullshit about what girls are supposed to be. Like
Yes.
I constantly, you know what I mean?
Yes. I can be adorable and I'm wearing a pink She Hacks Purple t-shirt, which obviously now I have to show because I'm wearing my own swag. Yeah, that's right. And like
Of course you do. Of course you are.
well, and like we just We Hack Purple, so shop.wehackpurple.com. And so we just like released a hoodie that is specifically lady shaped. And it comes in pink and bright lime green and purple and all these different, it actually comes in multiple shades of pink because I freaking want a pink hoodie. And I can still program just as well as someone else wearing a black hoodie or someone else that's a dude or etc. And oh my gosh, like
I might have to go and buy the pink hoodie.
it's so
Just wanna say.
cute. And I'm selling it almost for cost because I was like, I just want to have a really cute pink hoodie. I don't care.
So sweet. I love swag. By the way, I love swag. I ran downstate Chicago, which this shirt is from, and like I do swag because I love swag.
Me too. And I feel like, especially InfoSec, because so in programming, it's like, between 27-ish to 35-ish% lady folk. And the rest are men or non-binary folk. But in IT security, it is brutal. It's like around 10%, maybe 11%, as low as 5%, depending upon which country you're in, of the non-men.
And it's the same in ops. So ops is also very bad. Like, yeah, it's also like, so I went to school in Israel, right? And like in my first job was in Israel, and like we had significantly more women around in IT, and like coming here, it's actually interesting because like when I meet women in IT in America, they're usually not American, and it's kind of like it tells you a story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of the women in IT aren't from North America. That's true. A lot of people say to me, they're like, "Oh, it's so interesting that you chose IT." And I explained how both of my aunts have computer science degrees, and then 3 of my 5 uncles have computer science degrees, and then how my 2 older cousins, like one has a computer science and the other one has mechanics, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we see." Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the average little girl isn't necessarily told, you know what, you'd be such an amazing little software developer when you grow up.
My mom was pissed when I went. So I enrolled in biology, and then I didn't like it, and then I switched to computer science. And I loved it. And my mom was pissed for like 2 years about me switching to computer science. I'm just saying.
Whoa. Yep. When I told my family, I was like, yeah, so I thought about it, and I want to take computer science, and they're all like, we know. But I had considered drama. Like I applied to, like I got all I'm scholastically inclined, so I got like all the awards and all the stuff, right? And I even got like offered invites for various programs. So I'm like, oh, I could do English, but I already speak English. There's like history, there's this, there's that. And then I thought about the people in my classes, and I thought about my computer science class, and I was like, I like them the best. And if I'm gonna go work with these people all the time, oh my gosh, I would just murder everyone in my drama class. Like they're so, I was just like, oh my gosh, will you all just shut up like all day, right? And so the computer science people, I was just like, oh, it's so great. Like I love working with them. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'll try this, and then the rest is history. But I feel like, well, certainly people like you are setting an example for all the people, but especially the young ladies.
I will say that's part of it, like why I'm on stage and why I'm visible, and like why I'm willing to take the the weird comments on Twitter and whatever, like because I just want someone to be an example. Like you can do this. This is like people can be successful. People can you don't have to look a certain way to be successful in technology. I think it's an important message.
Sasha Rosenbaum, I have been looking forward to this interview for so long.
This went by too fast, right? Like, I mean, I feel like I could talk with you about the same, topics for another hour.
I know. Well, maybe I'm gonna have to invite you on next year, and I'm gonna have to think of a new topic, because technically this is like season 1. So season 1 goes on as long as I feel like it, because when you run your own podcast, you can do that. And then I'll have to think of a new topic, and then I'll be like, oh, this is a great excuse to have Sasha back on.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. I want to tell everyone verbally, you should all follow Sasha on Twitter. So if you go to Twitter and type in Divine Ops, so DIVINEOPS, like ops, like operations or DevOps. And she also has a website, which is sasharosenbaum.com. But let me spell that for you for the people listening. So Sasha, S-A-S-H-A, as you might have imagined. But then the tricky part, Rosenbaum, ROSENBAUM.com. Go visit, go check it out. Follow her. There will be fluffy animals, but also quite a lot of wisdom. The books we talked about today were The Strengths Finder and also Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Thank you. So basically, like, just so you know.
Your book. You have.
Oh, and yes, and Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, available from Wiley, Amazon, and basically all the places that sell books. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, when you come up with season 2, then I'm coming back.
Awesome. Okay, let's do the wave goodbye thing that we do. And bye, everyone.
Bye.
You. And that was the We Hack Purple podcast, episode 21 with Sasha Rosenbaum. I know I've been talking about her a lot on Twitter and stuff, and also on the show and how she was coming on, and I'm so excited that she was finally on. And I am totally scheming a plan to have her back already. Thank you so much to UBIQ Security for sponsoring this episode and sponsoring so many episodes before. Oh, it is so amazing how you have had our back at We Hack Purple. We Hack Purple is an academy, a community. We have a little swag shop on Shopify, and we sell cute t-shirts and hoodies. But mostly, we want to teach people about AppSec. And if you would like to learn some stuff for free, you can join our mailing list, and we will invite you to some free mini courses that are starting literally on Monday. So you want to sign up between now and then to get the invite. So go to newsletter.wehackpurple.com. And in the meantime, I wish that all your applications are secure.